Hello there. Welcome back to the main stage here at the R&I Days, to the Gold Hall. Thank you so much for joining us for what should be a fascinating discussion, brought to you by the European Research Council, which, as you heard yesterday, in the opening words of the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, plays a crucial role in securing Europe's place at the forefront of scientific discovery. Since 2007, the ERC has funded more than 17,000 projects and 15,000 researchers, and 3 of them are joining us here this morning at the R&I Days 2025. So thank you so much for being with us. To my right here, we have Connie Arts. She's an internationally renowned astrophysicist from Belgium and a member of the ERC Scientific Council. We have Dirk Inse, a molecular biologist from Belgium and a member also of the ERC Scientific Council. And we have Jan Lagervall, a Swedish experimental polymer professor based in Luxembourg and an ERC grantee. So thank you so much. Great to see you here this morning.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So the aim of this panel is to answer the main questions. How can Europe maintain its position as a world leader? And how can Europe, as we heard yesterday, not just be this powerhouse of knowledge, but also a place where talent thrives and talent stays? So perhaps we'll go ladies first and start with Connie Arts here and just put that question to you. I mean, we discussed it at length as well yesterday here on the main stage at the R&I Days about how can Europe stay competitive when it comes to scientific discovery over the next decade.
Yeah, well, actually, it's pretty simple for me to answer this question, in the sense that the European Research Council has shown how things can move on. So about 20 years ago, all of a sudden, scientists like myself, us, and thousands of others, all of a sudden got the opportunity to work out their innovative idea. And the selection is just scientific excellence. So it's a simple criterion. We could work on long-term planning and build our own team to develop our ideas. And so the immense amount of novelty and of knowledge that created is really amazing, and it's unique. There is no other place on this planet, I'm an astrophysicist, so I tend to use my own jargon, no other place on this planet that has such a program. We have to move on with more funding, because actually there are a lot of ideas that can be done at ERC thanks to the grants that cannot be done locally. I give the example of myself. I'm now known as the starquake professor, because that's what I do. I study starquakes thanks to the ERC. When I started 20 years ago, nobody believed in this topic. Nobody thought this would be important for astrophysical knowledge. Now it's an established field. And so there are thousands of examples like that. Thanks to the 5-year grants, it's the long-term aspect where you can build a team of international young scientists surrounding you, and this is really what we should be doing more and more, and invest in that. The return on investment is great, because it covers all scientific topics, but we don't know in advance from which topic the innovation will come, the practicalities in society. And so for that reason, yeah, fundamental science has to be supported, eventually with, ideally, twice as much money than we get now. Because all the panels, they rank the scientific excellence in twice as many projects that can be funded. And so that's a bit of a limitation that we face now. So let's get rid of this limitation, let's invest in fundamental science, and let's move on and keep going.
And I'm sure that's a message that can resonate with everyone here in the room. Dirk Inse, what would you like to add to that point, perhaps from a policy and ERC perspective?
Well, I think it's important to realize that the ERC is for scientists, by scientists. And that's, I think we fund and game-changing frontier research to new ideas, innovation, and we try to make actually the administration, the bureaucracy, as simple as possible, because that's the science who counts, in fact. And I think we've seen an evolution that where in the past maybe more, let's say the CV of the scientist was important, still important, but there actually is more an emphasis on the importance of the innovative idea. And that's what makes it also important for Europe, because very often it's from this innovation that you see also startups and industrial activities growing. And we need certainly to have mechanism actually to capture that. And there are few programs in the world which are comparable. Really, I think the ERC stands out. I mean, right, in the US, you have the Howard Hughes Foundation, which also funds top research, but mainly researchers. And they, so of course the research project is always important. In China you have now a fantastic new initiative. It's a new cornerstone initiative, and it's a huge funding schemes in fact but they fund again mainly scientists, not the project. And in Europe we do that different. We actually look for what is really novel, what can change the world. And I give you one example. It sometimes lies in completely unexpected research areas. So give you one example is that maybe some of you had this morning been eating yogurt. Well, yogurt is made with a bacteria, and it turns out that this bacteria sometimes didn't work anymore because there were viruses infecting this bacteria. And if you would ask this audience, would you give a lot of money to study a bacteria in yogurt? Maybe that's something for industry. No. Researchers went to the mechanism and they discovered a totally new mechanism by which infected bacteria could remember which viruses infected these things. And that was the beginning of the discovery of the CRISPR system. You might have heard about gene editing, which is actually a completely revolutionary way to deal with genetic diseases, for microbial biotechnology, for breeding novel crops and so on. And so it came from a completely unexpected world, in fact. And this is what the ERC actually can be very proud of.
Fascinating example, Dirk, that we can all, of course, relate to. Jan, what is your stance on this point?
So maybe I would like to move the focus forward to innovation, because, well, let me first of all say that I completely agree that Europe is already absolutely outstanding at the research, at foundational frontier research. We are global leaders. But picking up on what Connie said about you don't know which result will be the basis for future innovation, we really need to have a long-term perspective. And maybe we should be wary of just following trends. You know, 15 years ago, everyone was talking about graphene. Now everyone is talking about AI and quantum. Of course, these are very important topics, but just because you have AI or quantum in your name doesn't mean that you're a company that is really pushing the envelope on this, right? So we should be, I think of Larry Page's, Google's former CEO's interview, where he said, how did Google become so successful? Well, because we looked at what everyone else is missing. And I think that perspective we should take also, especially in terms of innovation. If we look at what opportunities does European foundational research give to solve problems not today, but in 10, 15, 20 years, that's where we can really be innovative, I believe.
So it's time that we're trend setters and not following the crowd, if you like. Dirk, just what do you think are the biggest opportunities and also perhaps barriers for making Europe the most attractive place for top scientific talent?
Well, I think Europe is already a very attractive place to do science. First of all, we have a lot of top institutes, and there's no doubt about that. So that makes it attractive. I mean, to be able to work in environments which are stimulating, where you have colleagues, in fact, which are also outstanding. And so I think also in Europe we have this diversity. We are inclusive. I mean, many of our research groups are very, very international. I mean, I work here for a Flemish research institute on biotech. Well, I think the Belgians are by far the minority. Like in fact, we have also the ERC. Like actually, they funded people with 95 different nationalities. So that makes Europe unique. And of course, we have many hurdles. I mean, for example, it's very difficult to attract, let's say, advanced people. I mean, somewhat senior people from the US because there's an enormous salary bridge, because their salaries are really calculated on another basis, in fact. But nevertheless, I mean, particularly for younger people, we should be able to attract more of this worldwide talent. And the ERC, under the leadership of Ursula von der Leyen, who came up with the idea, is now launching a new program. It's called ERC Plus, with more money, with a longer-term vision to attract this absolutely top talent to Europe.
And that was, of course, the European Commission President's keynote speech that she gave in the Sorbonne as well, making that point, trying to attract more science here to the European Union. Your view on that, Connie?
Yeah, for me, to add a little bit to that, I like to do things differently from all others, you know? And the ERC gives that opportunity because it is indeed made for scientists by scientists. No intervention of people telling us what to do. We are completely stubborn people. And that's what we need. We need the freedom to do it in the way we want to. And yeah, for me, it has been a game changer to be able to do that during 5 years. Think about a problem. And then the nice thing is serendipity, because you're searching for something and along the way you find something completely different. And that will be the bigger success story very often. And so these opportunities is what I also see as what Dirk calls diversity. It's doing it your own way without intervention of anybody else.
Yeah, and your take, you're of course based in Luxembourg for over 10 years now.
Yep.
Tell us your view on that point as well, about attracting talent here.
Yeah, I think it's Europe is right now maybe more attractive than ever for researchers. So being in a tiny country like Luxembourg, we hire mainly people from abroad. Mm-hmm. There simply aren't that many Luxembourgish researchers to take from, right? But it's interesting to see where people apply from. Not usually so much European countries, because if you're in Europe, you're happy. But Russia, China, India, now even US. And of course, what's happened in the US is really a big change, right? So Europe just got more attractive.
I think you would agree with that, Dirk.
Well, absolutely. And we see that, particularly, for example, if you send out a post for postdocs, in fact, we see that there is an enormous increase actually in US scientists who are applying. So particularly the younger ones are really willing to take the risk to come to Europe. I think what is important that we should really develop more long-term funding systems as well. The ERC is very nice. It can give you a 5 years grant. The grant size can be improved, by the way, because it stayed the same since 2007. So I mean, there is inflation now. So maybe we have to double that up, even. That's one thing. But we should have systems also that people from the US, for example, that when you have an ERC grant, that they can continue for example, in a tenure track system at universities or in institutes. So many top institutes, and I can speak for University of Ghent, also here the University of Leuven, we know in Belgium very well, they have such a system. Once you have an ERC grant and you come to the country, you can continue to work, and that makes it attractive. Otherwise, 5 years is over before you realize it. And that's something that we should really look into in the future, I think.
And I want to pick up on a point that was made yesterday by Clark Parsons on this very seat, on this very stage. Clark Parsons, the CEO of the European Startup Network, said yesterday, in the EU, we're good at succeeding in the lab, but it means nothing if you fail in the market and you fail in Wall Street. How can we do better there, Jan?
Sorry?
How can we do better there?
Yeah, I think again, the long-term perspective is really important to build on European ideas and innovation. I have founded a startup. It's a bit sad that European money funding our ideas is actually picked up by India at the moment. Whenever we tried to pitch our ideas in Europe, the response was, okay. And India, we're working with the Indian pharmaceutical company, they immediately see the value, and they say, as soon as you can adapt this to our production process, we'll be your customer. But it's not a little bit a new idea, and it's difficult in Europe to get traction for new ideas, to be honest.
Connie, anything to add there?
I agree. I think we have to make sure that we are at the forefront of development. And, you know, from ERC to EIC, it works very well. There is a path, there is a really great success story, but the capital has to follow. And I think this is critical, mainly for my neighbors here. I'm really in the universe, blue sky stuff, but that's also necessary to start.
Indeed, it's all about the capital, Dirk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have already systems to capture value. We are in the ERC. We have what is called a proof of concept grants, and in fact, which has been actually very successful. I mean, we are, I think, 2,300 projects which already got some extra money to really to go a step further in showing the value, potential value. And in fact, and I must say that this proof of concept grants were very successful in entering the EIC, the European Innovation Council Transition Fund. More than 40-50, it depends on the year, 40-50% of all the proof of concepts went through this transition fund. In my opinion, the problem which lies in Europe, that we are much more risk adverse than what we see in the US. I mean, very often in the US, and I can speak of experience, when you have a good idea, you have something, I mean, you show up something really spectacular, there will be venture capital which going to invest in you on the fly, writing your business plan and co-developing a company. And while in Europe, you often already have to sell a product before you can convince somebody to put money into that. And that's a big hurdle. We always start with 2, 3, 4 years behind our competition. There is this aspect, this risk advertisement of venture capital is also reflected by this risk versus regulation in Europe. I mean, we often look to the negative side of things, where often you have to take a certain risk in order to really boost innovation. And there I think we have to get this balance better, I think, this balance between risk and regulation, and maybe have it actually much more science-driven rather than on fear-mongering and so on. So I'm not going to talk, maybe I could give you many examples of that, but it's something that we need to change in Europe in order to become much more competitive.
And that is a point that is popping up continuously. Jan, just what would you say to how the ERC can help cutting-edge research while also helping to key societal and also innovation goals?
Sorry, the echo is difficult. What?
So how can the ERC, how can they help cutting-edge research while also contributing to key goals for improving our health and, of course, innovation, which is one of the key points of the RNI Days?
Which? The echo
Perhaps
is really difficult here.
Yeah, well, I think we're doing that already. So we, with the ERC, we have a program. It's called Mapping Frontier Research, where actually we look in what did the ERC contribute to certain key societal questions. For example, climate change. And it turns out that we have been funding hundreds, if not thousands, of projects which are related to climate change, not only from the technical aspects, also physical science, but also, and which is really important, from the humanities. For example, trying to understand why have people such a short-term vision on climate, why people tend to forget about all that. So what are the mechanisms? How should you communicate with society? So this type of things we are actually doing. And of course, we do not have calls for certain specific societal problems. It's completely driven by scientists, by ideas by the scientists. But if you take the whole package, actually we're contributing enormously to the societal problems.
Of huge importance. Jan, let's go back to you and speak perhaps on a personal level on how the ERC is helping you with your work.
yeah.
And I believe you have a little secret.
Yeah, exactly. I brought, Dirk mentioned proof of concepts grant. So I have some samples with me here that came out of this ERC proof of concept project called Reveal. And these are some quite colorful fibers. And the special thing about these fibers is that the color doesn't come from a dye. It comes from the structure. And the reason this is important is that if I deform the fibers, the structure changes, and so the color changes. So these are fibers that basically reveal stress or strain by a color change. And the funny thing, this started out as absolutely curiosity-driven research in my consolidated grant before. But now, every time I show these fibers to people from different areas, and from different backgrounds, we come up with new application opportunities all the time. So there is a student at the Institut Français de la Mode. He really wants us to scale up this so he can make dresses for his models that change color when they wear them. And, but a spectacular thing was really a German medical doctor, Attila Dubrechts. He contacted me, and he said, when he saw our paper on this, he said, I need your fibers now in the form of suture threads. Because he's a pioneer in robotic surgery, and because they don't feel, they are not in contact with the sutures, they cannot judge the strain. So they break the suture thread, and they lose the needle in the patient, and the next half hour, the whole team is spending looking for the needle. So this morning, in fact, Attila and me, together with 2 European companies and 1 research institute, submitted an EIC transition proposal where we will make these fibers biocompatible, scale up the production, and turn them into suture threads for solving that problem.
I think that deserves a round of applause. Amazing. Thank you so much for that live demo here on the main stage at the RNI Days. Connie, a topic that you're very passionate about is STEM, getting more women involved in STEM. Tell us about your plans to improve that.
Oh, yes, I have continuous plans. Literally this afternoon, I'm to deliver an inspiring lecture to new students. The point is that I want to stress we should never, ever, ever underestimate the importance of curiosity of our kids. Because whether you like it or not, we're the oldies, and the kids, they will be the innovators of the next 10 years, right? So what we should do is attract youngsters, also those from a background where they have perhaps less contact from their home families and culture with science. We should let them do their thing, their passion. I mean, we just heard about passion of wires. Well, I usually use the universe because everybody's passionate about the universe, right? And so I think this is really critical to attract more youngsters into STEM education because we really lack people there in our technology-driven societies. So often I get the question, what is your product for society? Well, my product is inspiration, and that works with the young kids. Whether you all dislike it or not, I can do that. And so many scientists are like me, and I think we have to embrace that. That includes like universities, which are sometimes not so focused on recognizing the importance of outreach to society. And I tend to try to show them that they are wrong, because this is really critical for me and a big aspect also of ERC research, in my opinion.
And if people in the room share the opinion of Connie Arts, you should stick around here, because a little bit later in the day, we'll be sitting down here with Lucy Hawking, and she is, of course, the daughter of Stephen Hawking, and she is doing a lot of work and writing a lot of books on that very topic, trying to make science more attractive for our children. Fascinating topic. Dirk, I'd like to come to you for another point about international collaboration, but if anyone in the room does have a comment or a question, please feel free as well to raise your hand, and we can send a microphone around the room to bring you in. How can the EU do better here on this point of international collaboration?
Well, it's of course still very, very important, and here I think there are 2 points I want to make here. From I would make a strong plea for a relatively small-scale international project, which are interdisciplinary. You have a certain problem, like a certain research question, and better to define it like that, and look for competence, like in Europe, eventually outside Europe, really to solve that, and to be complementary, interdisciplinary to solve the problem. In the ERC, we have the synergy grants, which are very successful, where 3, 4 partners, there can be one, can be even outside of outside Europe, can actually participate in solving this. And these are very effective. These people meet very often, they try to understand each other. I'm personally much less in favor of this very large consortia, often addressing a societal problem, where you have so many different partners, where you have to also industry partners and all this thing, where you have to actually appoint a company to do the administration often. I mean, I'm less in favor of that because they don't work. Everybody gets a kind of very small piece of money, hardly sufficient to pay a PhD student. I mean, it's kind of salaminisé, like in fact, all the funding. And so it's better to really to get it much more focused and much more directed to solving an outstanding, interesting, game-changing question. Yeah.
Jan?
I can only agree with this. So we have a synergy grant together with I and a researcher from Cambridge and from Lisbon, and the connectivity, because the 3 groups really complement each other, right? This is really amazing. And I have also led a number of consortia or attempts to get consortia together, like with 8, 9 partners. And it can be very difficult to get everyone on board. There are usually like 3, 4 people who are really engaged, and then a couple of others who are, yeah, I'm in, but I don't want to do any work or something like that.
And Connie, just your take on how can research communicate the value of life sciences to the public and also to policymakers?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of outreach, of course, not in life sciences, but, well, it's still critical to go for what I tend to call the elegance of simplicity, you know. Try to translate what complex problem solvers, you know, achieve together. And I fully agree. I have the honor to lead a synergy grant right now. We were together last week with about 25 people. And then the outcome of that is not necessarily something easy to communicate. But if I talk to politicians, policymakers, I tend to use the return on investment. I mean, it's very clear. For every single euro you put in the ERC, you get up to 5 euros back. There's no risk in that sense. So the business case is obvious, as long as you keep the basis for general topics in all fields. We don't want to be told what to do. We know what to do. We are stubborn enough to work like mad to achieve where we want to head for. So please keep that model. It's a European flagship. We should not change that. And I understand that it's difficult sometimes for politicians to understand that we think long-term, which is not what they like per se, but that's the key goal, the long-term plan. I heard all 3 of us say that and confirm that.
I just have to pitch in there because I want to quote Steve Jobs. He was famously said, "We don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. We hire them to tell us what to do."
Very valid point. Dirk, anything to add there on this idea of communicating?
No, I think science communication is really important. Starts from really from small kids. Well, we should do experiments, actually, show people what science is, that attracts them, make it exciting. And I think also all the media, television can contribute to that. I mean, I'm not an astrophysicist, but for example, Brian Cox had a fantastic series on our planets, actually, or solar system. I learned, fantastic to see that, and that can attract young people really back to science, and getting excited, in fact, because we scientists, we don't work because we have to work. We love our job. We are living with that. It's a passion, and I think we can. I mean, it's very. I mean, very difficult to bring this message, but we should continue to do that, I think.
And we can feel that passion here on the stage today. Dirk, just one final question perhaps from our panelists, because I don't see anyone with their hand raised in the audience. What should we look out for in the future, in the near future? What scientific intersections are the most promising for future breakthroughs?
What scientific
Intersections, or what should we look
yeah.
out for in the science world in the next 10 years? What
Well,
big breakthroughs? I mean, you said earlier we shouldn't follow the trends, we should set the trends. So what should we look out for?
Yeah, I just believe in interdisciplinarity in general. I also think outreach and open communication is so important to get feedback from people doing completely different things. So yes, intersections between science are important, but also intersections with art, with humanities, with medicine. That's where the additionality.
That sounds exciting. Dirk?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are many interesting things to be said about that. I'm a life science person, and I think the intersection between life science and AI will be revolutionizing. We have so much data on genomes, we know so much, but really it's the complexity. It's very hard to grasp, and I think we will get complete new treatments for patients, new ways to improve crops, to make them climate resilient, all these things that come to a large extent by an AI-driven integration in these data.
So watch the space there. Connie, we started with you, so we'll give you also the final word.
For me, it's very simple. Let me answer on behalf of 15-year-old kids who ranked key questions according to their interest. The winner top key question is there life outside this planet? It unites us all, because to find the answer, we need transdisciplinarity. And please, let us go for the children of this world, so that they can find the answer, because that's within realm, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Connie, Dirk, and Jan, for those passionate interventions. A round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you very much.
I think the key takeaway for me is, why is ERC a success story? Because it's run by scientists for scientists. And that, of course, brings this conversation to an end. If you do want to find out more about the work of the ERC, there is a dedicated stand downstairs in the Grand Hall at the exhibition. You can meet one ERC grantee, David Fernandez Rivas, and find out about his project, Bubble Gun. But now it is time to take a break. There will be sessions taking place from 11 in the Copper and the Silver Hall. And I, as I said, will be here at 11:45 with Lucy Hawking. See you then.